All right. Well, good evening and welcome to the Coon Rapids City Council meeting for Tuesday, May 19th, 2020. If you would please join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you could please call the roll.
Councilmember Griscoviac.
Here.
Councilmember Kicker.
Here.
Councilmember Demmer.
Here.
Councilmember Geisler. Here. Councilmember Johnson. Councilmember Wells.
Here.
Mayor Cook.
Here.
One absent, Johnson.
All right. Thank you. Next is to adopt this evening's agenda.
Your Honor, so moved.
Second.
Motion by Kicker, second by Demmer. Any discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? And the agenda is adopted. We have one proclamation tonight, and that is it is National Public Works Week. And since 1960, the American Public Works Association has sponsored National Public Works Week. Across North America, more than 30,000 members in the US and Canada use this week to energize and educate the public on the importance of the contribution of public works to their daily lives. So let's just read the proclamation here because probably some of that's in there. All right. Okay, Proclamation for Public Works Week. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the health, comfort, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Coon Rapids. And whereas these infrastructures, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals responsible for building, improving, and maintaining our transportation, water supply, water treatment systems, public buildings, and other facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens and civic leaders in the city of Coon Rapids to gain knowledge and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their community. And whereas the year 2020 marks the 60th annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now, therefore, I, Jerry Cook, Mayor of the City of Coon Rapids, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the third full week of May as National Public Works Week in the City of Coon Rapids and urge our citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association in paying tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our health, safety, and quality of life. I'm only surprised we didn't work the word essential in there. That seems very appropriate for this as well. So, Mr. Himmer, we are not doing a public works open house this year. So is there any other way our residents can recognize our public works employees or just wave when they drive by? Or don't answer that.
He's frozen.
He is frozen. All right. Well, I'll take that. I guess we'll move on from there.
The IT guys pranked him.
Backbone of civilization there.
Yep. All right. So then let's move on to item 2, the approval of the minutes from the May 5th meeting.
I just say I think he's back, but
Oh, Mr. Hammer, did you want to add anything to that Public Works Week?
Mr. Mayor, Council, I guess I'm just disappointed we didn't see everyone last weekend for the open house. We're continue out there doing our jobs. We got a lot of great people doing their work, continuing on, and construction season is upon us, so they'll see us a lot more whether they like it or not. And so thank you for the proclamation. We appreciate it. We'll keep working hard for the city.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much. On to item 2 here, approval of the minutes of May 5th, 2020.
I'll
Move
move
to approve.
the minutes.
Okay, well, that was actually a tie. I'm going to give that one to Wells. Motion by Wells, second by Geisler.
I'll second that.
Any a discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And those minutes are approved. Let me just go back here and look. All right, we have 2 items on our consent agenda this evening. And the first one is item 3 on this evening's agenda. And that is to approve and adopt resolution 20-50 to accept a grant from the Office of Justice Programs, OJP, United States Department of Justice, DOJ. The Coon Rapids Police Department has received notice that our Bureau of Justice Assistance Fiscal Year 20 Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Program grant application to the Office of Justice Programs, OJP, United States Department of Justice, DOJ, has been approved, and the department has been awarded $39,711 for the purchase of protective eyewear, N95 respirator masks, mobile display laptops for command staff, and additional personal protective equipment for future use. So we are looking to approve the grant and adopting resolution 20-50 to accept the $39,711 grant from the Office of Justice Programs, OJP, United States Department of Justice, DOJ, to be used toward the purchase of protective eyewear, N95 respirator masks, laptops, and additional personal protective equipment for future use. And then the second item on our consent agenda is item 4 on this evening's agenda, and that's to approve the final payment to Custom Builders Incorporated for project 17-12, 2018 park improvements. This was project 17-12. Okay. So, all right, I'm sorry. Here we go. The change orders were for additional park improvements at Riverwind Park, parking lot reconstruction at Crooked Lake, as well as additional concrete, electrical, trail, and earthwork at the parks. The actual project costs were less than the final contract amount due to quantity adjustments from the original bid. So we're looking to approve change orders and final payment to Custom Builders Incorporated in the amount of $6,500 for project 17-12, 2018 park improvements. And that's our whole consent agenda.
Your Honor,
Councilmember Demmer?
move to adopt the consent agenda.
Second?
Motion by Demmer, second by Kicker. Is there any discussion or questions?
Your Honor,
Councilmember Griscoviac?
regarding the grant from the Department of Justice, maybe a question for our police chief. I noticed that, first of all, nice job getting us $39,000 for protective gear for the force. Excellent. My question or comment would be, there is 1 page of grant information, and then there's 14 pages of conditions. So I was just, how much work is it to comply with 14 pages of conditions? I'm sure you're certified with some of those conditions that are there. And then what happens if, for example, one of the conditions is broke? Do they claw back? How does that work?
Thank you, Councilmember Griscoviac. Yes, whatever the federal government does that's tied to money tends to be paperwork intensive. That said, is that particular grant structure through the Department of Justice is one that we're familiar with. We've applied for a variety of grants through them for, I'm sure, 20 or more years. And so the framework of all those conditions we're well aware of. And for the most part, it's making sure that you have a paper trail, that you document your expenses, that everything is run through a professionally run finance department, which we do have in the city of Coon Rapids, and that we account for every nickel spent. Because there is I don't know what the odds are, but we always think of it as a good chance of being audited later on. Sometimes they find small issues, but it's never been a problem for us. And we were grateful for this grant. Truthfully, all of our coronavirus related expenses, that is for the police department, have been paid for through that grant. The taxpayers for the city have not paid for any coronavirus personal protective equipment or gear related to this pandemic.
Thank you. Can I ask a follow-up question then? Those funds, when they're used, do those expenditures come before the council, or do you just handle that since it's a grant?
Thank you, Councilmember Griscoviac. Yeah, one of the conditions for the grant was that it be COVID-related expenses. Those were expenses we had regardless. So we needed N95 masks, we needed eyewear protection for the officers, and the laptops were mobile laptops, so that the command staff would be in a position, myself included, would be able to respond to calls for service from my police department vehicle, because otherwise it didn't have a laptop in it capable of doing that. So those were expenses that we took on as part of our coronavirus response. Access to the grant funds came later. And so once the grant came along, then we simply converted those expenses over to a grant expense.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief Wise.
All right. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? And that consent agenda is adopted. We have one item under old business, and that is to consider adoption of Ordinance 2232, amending the city code related to the Civil Service Commission. We're being asked to consider adopting ordinances to amend city codes 3-101, 3-102, and 3-104 related to the Civil Service Commission. And this change will abolish the Civil Service Commission oversight of the police department while retaining a fire civil service commission. And it's believed that removing the Civil Service Commission oversight from the police department will help improve the recruitment process when hiring police officers. Human Resources would oversee the entire hiring and promotional processes, ensuring equal employment opportunity and adherence to all applicable state and federal laws. Does anybody need anything presented on that or have any questions on that?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate or make clear that by doing this, there's nothing that's going to change within our police department, any sort of ability to promote, or if there's any disciplinary actions or suspensions or anything like that. It doesn't change the fact that we still have very strong policies and practices to make sure that our police force is healthy and doing and serving our community. And just if there's anything that Police Chief, if you want to add to that, I just want to make sure that everybody's clear that there is no change in the quality of our police force by doing this.
Yeah, actually, thank you for the opportunity, Councilmember Geisler. Yeah, the civil service law as it relates to police services is old law. And it was in place, say, to prevent me from hiring my brother-in-law as my assistant chief or something like that. I mean, that was the essence of it, at least in the beginning. But since those civil service laws were written, Minnesota, for instance, had a licensing requirement for peace officers, which came in the 1970s. And so every peace officer has a license, which is regulated by the Police Officer Standard and Training, what you would hear as the Post Board. So there's that regulatory body. And then there are labor agreements now that I know the city manager discussed at length is the labor agreement basically sets out the framework for discipline, and that we have a detailed standard operating procedures manual in place in addition to state statute and constitutional law that ensures that the officers do what they need to do, and that in the event that something goes sideways is that we're able to take disciplinary action. And then as far as the promotional process, goes is that, we have a pretty robust system both for internal or external candidates into the police department for vetting candidates to include background checks and so on. So it just wound up to be an extra layer that really became, I guess I would say, antiquated, just because there are so many ways that professionalism is ensured in law enforcement in the state of Minnesota.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. I think Your Honor has frozen.
No, I'm back now, aren't I?
There you are.
Twice.
There we go. Yeah, I was frozen. So I had to leave and then come back. All right. I missed probably the last 10 seconds of the Chiefs thing, but very good. Any other questions on that?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Griscoviac?
I'd just like to add a thank you, Chief Wise and Councilmember Geisler, for those comments. We did discuss this at length in our work session, so I think it's great that we've got the same type of information out here in the public forum and in the council meeting. I did have one other point on that, but I think I may have lost it. Oh, I guess my other point was this: is during the council meeting or the work session, we looked at all of our commissions. As we're trying to streamline the entire organization, we're always trying to find ways to, make things more efficient. And this was just one area that we all decided would be more efficient if we made this change. So just wanted to add that commentary. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, we have a motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinances to amend City Code 3-101, 3-102, and 3-104 related to Civil Service Commission.
Second.
Motion by Geisler, second by Griscoviac. Mr. Stemwedel.
Mayor and Council, I'll just mention that under the assumption the council passes these changes, we will be looking for one more member of the Fire Civil Service Commission. We do have a couple of applicants that indicated their interest toward the end of the year in 2019, but we'll those again and hopefully appoint someone at a city council meeting coming up here in June. The two existing members will be able to just transfer over since we're not completely abolishing the commission. We're just repealing a portion of that. The two members will stay on and we'll just look at a third member here in June.
Excellent. All right. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. And Councilmember Geisler, thank you for jumping on that motion because I thought we'd already done that.
No, I started with the comments first, probably out of order.
All right. Nothing under new business. And do we have anybody for open mic this evening? No. All right. We don't have any reports on previous open mics, and we are up to other business. Flying
Your
right
Honor?
through here. Councilmember Demmer.
Just a quick one. A lot of times we've ended up going to the Coon Rapids High School Biomed presentation night, and that was last week, but it was of course online. Again, got to see the projects that those students did, and while certainly a big challenge to have their workflow completely changed 2/3 of the way through the year, they did some interesting things. They were pretty far along in their projects when the school got shut down, but also that then they took on the opportunity to learn as much as they could about epidemiology and how viruses spread. And so, again, a real integrative program over there at Coon Rapids, and congratulations to all the students that took part in that biomed program.
Yeah, I imagine that was quite a challenge because they've got quite a nice lab over there for them to work at the school. And when they were all of a sudden distance learning, I imagine they had to distance themselves from their lab equipment too.
Yeah, and it was all teamwork, where normally you get together and do stuff. So yeah, big challenge for sure.
Yeah, a lot of changes, a lot of things going on at the end of the school year here. A lot of trying to figure out how to recognize them for their accomplishments, and don't know. Other business. Mr. Stemwedel.
Mayor and Council, thank you. I'll just make a couple of notes. We did open City Hall and Public Works to the public for public traffic yesterday. It was essentially our soft opening, and we'll continue to do that. We've already made a few adjustments to our customer service desk, just as we got some people in and understood what human nature reality looked like at our front counters. We added some new panels and things like that, but overall things have gone very smoothly. So that was new, and there's always a little bit of trepidation, I suppose, when you kind of jump back into normalcy in the case of COVID-19. And so far, I think so good for us as we've done that. We'll make some more announcements about that this week. We've updated our website and things like that, but we didn't make a big splash with anything just because we wanted to see how things went for a couple of days. But now we're feeling more comfortable moving forward with that. I will also mention that tomorrow will be a very interesting day as it relates to the governor's updates on bars, restaurants, and places of public accommodation. More from an operational standpoint, our interest is in the places of public accommodation. We're getting a lot of questions about when city facilities, other than those basic services, will open, things like Coon Rapids Ice Center, the Civic Center, and so forth. And a lot of it will depend on the guidance that's provided by the state of Minnesota. Included in that will be some sort of preparedness plan for those facilities on what operations look like, and under, I imagine, some pretty strict guidelines for reopening. And so we'll have to evaluate how and when those operations will move forward once we have that guidance. I'm sure it'll take a little time to sift through some of that information. But suffices to say, none of those things will be opening before June 1st. And I would include the splash pad, which typically opens right before Memorial Day. Is one of those concentrated places of public accommodation that the DNR at this point has said it does not have the green light to open. And so at least for the first weekend, we'll have to keep the pipes turned off to the splash pad. And then as we get more information about what that looks like going forward, we can reevaluate what that means for the splash pad and some of those other facilities. So I think that's really it from a changes standpoint that the public would be interested that have happened in the last couple of weeks. Thank you.
Seems odd the Department of Natural Resources would be telling us when we can turn our splash pad on, but fortunately, I think this weekend is not going to be ideal splash pad weather anyway. So, all right, other business. All right, City Council chambers look like they're coming along well. The conference room and stuff. So, hopefully June. All right. No other business to consider. I guess I would only just wish everybody a happy Memorial Day weekend. Were you just putting your hand up there again, Matt?
I do have one other note, Mayor Council. If you'll allow me, I was going to mention that filing for City Council started today. And so Joan had a few people visit her right away this morning, our city clerk. And that filing will continue for a couple of weeks. Joan, the last date is escaping me as I bring this up here, but just to let folks know that that is occurring right now.
June 2.
Okay, so filing is open through June 2nd.
Correct.
Okay. Very good. Well, if there's no other business, I guess there's no reason to hang in here.
Your Honor, move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Geisler to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're done. I guess I've never asked for opposed before.